Hello. This is kind of a topic video, also a direct response to Language Learning 24 video about useless languages. Uh, Nice to meet you. Oh wow, I just spilled some water that I didn't know I had. Anyway, all right. So yeah, I have definitely dealt with lots of people like your uncle, and what's funny is that these people don't even study languages. They just think that they're useful. They're like, "Oh, you're studying Spanish. Oh, you're so successful. You're so awesome." And that's very useful, and they have no experience whatsoever. They just have opinions. So, I learned to tune them out really quick, and I sometimes get into arguments with these kind of people, but it's kind of not worth your time, really. They'll, they'll I don't know if they'll ever get out of that, but it's something they have to do on their own. Uh, but yeah, really, if a language exists, and especially if it's written down, it is useful because that means that someone had critical thought enough to write something down, and that means that it's important to the history of our species. It's like, ha, ha, you know. You say Latin is a dead language, but it's alive today in Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese. So I don't think it's dead at all. I think it's a lot like studying the Chinese radicals and Chinese characters. Like, the radicals on their own don't mean anything, but understanding the radicals gives you a solid understanding enough to know how Chinese writing works. And so to say it's useless is like saying that learning how to uh, swim with a backstroke is useless. Like, it's a solid workout for your body. And whether or not you speak with any people, because a lot of people tell me, why are you learning Japanese instead of Spanish? And I am learning Spanish, but not as intensely as Japanese, Chinese, and Korean, because those are close to who I am. And I can't force myself to have that same kind of I've been trying and trying again to find the same muse, I guess would be the good word, best word, for Spanish, but it's just I can't really find it yet. It's not, I don't, every time I try to watch Spanish media, I just, it's just not interesting to me. The TV shows, uh, the books are really hard to get into because I'm not from a Spanish-speaking country. I mean, unless you count California as one. But I prefer with Spanish. What I do with Spanish is I take books that I've already read in English and find the translation and then just read it because I already know the whole story in my heart and in my mind. And I kind of have a photographic memory when it comes to reading because I've just been reading for so long. And so, and I made sure I had a solid understanding of basic Spanish pronunciation so that I wouldn't be making any mistakes, and practiced at length with all the letters, and it's I like doing that. I like finding books that I already know in English and then get their translation and then read it, for fun, and look up words as I go. But yeah, I've had many people, my brother especially, because he speaks fluent Spanish, really dirty Spanish, actually. But that's an opinion, and he speaks Spanish. He just he chooses to speak it in a way that is less than academic. But and he doesn't know how to read. No, he doesn't read at all. He doesn't even read English books, I don't think. And he works out a lot, but it's that's my brother, and he tried learning Chinese once. He tried learning Japanese. He actually bought all the books that I currently have and use. I haven't actually bought a single Japanese book because I can't afford it, and everything I've used for studying I've been able to get for free, or passed down to me. It's like, my brother he took a class at the community college for Chinese, and then he just stopped after that. He thought that he knew enough. And like, I'm not like that. I always try to find something new. I'm not content with just knowing how to say a few phrases. I want to be able to understand it on a personal level, the way I understand my first language, which is English. I want to be able to, you know, write down and respond to, you know, critical thought. And, you know, it's, I, I really think everyone has different goals, and that's why, you know, these people who think that languages are useless just because people don't speak in your area, they're limited in their world. They don't see that we're an entire planet. And they also don't see that we're also an entire planet among many planets. And we haven't made contact with any possible life forms yet, but, you know, it's not impossible. I mean, we exist, so someone else might exist. And if we can't even fathom learning a language of our own planet, how can we learn to communicate with people from other planets that may have similar languages to ours? Because, you know, what science does is it finds patterns, and usually languages evolve for a reason. It'll obviously have different colloquialisms, but that's a funny word. But, you know, like, there's probably going to be a language like English. It's probably going to be a language like Spanish. Probably going to be a language like Japanese, even. But, you know, there's definitely going to be a Chinese-like language. There's always that. I think in just human thought, there's always the empire of just complete. Oh my God, I could talk about Chinese for days, so I'm not going to get started here. But basically, you know, it's learning how humans think is important for us because we are humans. And so it's not useless. I mean, it would only be useless if you think it's useless. So if you're doing it and you think it's important, then that makes it important. Not because other people say it's important, but because you say it's important. And if people tell you something's important and you don't think it's important, it doesn't work both ways. Because you might be in a limited way of thinking, so you don't know from their perspective. And the other way around, it's different, because if you think that someone is doing something useless, that just means that you don't know enough about it. And I also have to state this and make this really clear, is that knowing a second language will not get you a job. It just will not. I mean, people always say this, but in practice, you know, you have to be good at finding jobs. It's a specific skill. You have to be good at a job. You can't just learn a language and all of a sudden get a job. It's a complete different language of its own. And I'm, because of my health, I can't really work. I'm trying to work from home here, and I'm still getting out the kinks. But, you know, I haven't been able to have an actual full income yet. But, you know, I'm getting there, and I'm not going to give up, because if I give up, then I'm just not doing anything. And, you know, just like with my languages, I don't give up on that. You know, I rest, but, you know, I don't stop. And even, you know, I've only used one Japanese course, and it was, I forgot what it was. I think it might have been Living Language. It was the one with like a pagoda on it. Or you know, a really old-fashioned kind of. It had like an old Japanese castle on it, and you know, it was all in Romaji, which was okay at the time. It was generally just teaching you, you know, the basics, and that's what I started with, and I just picked it up as I went. Using the material I use is stuff from real life. I use what people create, and sometimes the challenge is knowing which material is correct material, because you don't know, because you're still learning. So you have to either find material from sources you trust, you know, from like from publishers who are reputable, and you know, find material, material from like internet blogs, for example, might have a lot of mistakes and you know, might, you know, not be correct language. But still, part of critical thinking and learning languages is determining which ones are which. and that's kind of a game in itself. Is comparing uh, different output of language from different people across time, and comparing them in your mind, and then coming up with your own conclusions. And that's kind of the cool thing about languages, is that it's always growing. And even, okay, you could learn Klingon, and it's not useless. It was how a language works is that there are natural ways of speaking it, and with grammar rules and vocabulary, and then it grows. And so even Klingon is a language. It really is a language, and it's being used by people now. This is the birth of a language right here, is Klingon. And I think there's a Star Wars language that's starting. I was reading up on fictional languages the other day. Like from Avatar. What do they call it? Avanti? No, I forgot what it was called. But they speak. That's a language, and I think it sounded a lot like Arabic to me, but that's my untrained ears. Just like Korean kind of sounds like Russian to me, from a Japanese ear. but but now starting to it changes as you learn more, and that's the kind of the cool thing. But yeah, anyway, don't listen to those people. They are completely wrong, and you know it. And the thing is communication, I think, is about communication in most people's minds is being able to ask for something, or get something. To me, that's not the most important part of language learning. Because if I was in another country and I didn't know the language, I would obviously, get some material to start learning it. But if I really needed something, I would communicate it with a mixture of English and gestures. That's communication to me. And I would use the words I know, and, vocabulary I know, and grammar. I would try to use it as possible, obviously as much as possible. But, if you want to communicate, you have alternative options. To me, that's not the most important part of language learning. To me, the most important part is being able to understand it on a personal level, being able to, have a connection with, the rest of the world, and being able to understand and think critically about it, being able to understand, that this is a human that is communicating with themselves and with the rest of the world and with God, and however you define that. And to me, that's the most important part of being alive, is being able to communicate not only directly but through writing, because writing is communication. It's communication across time. It's you can communicate. Now that we have technology to record our voices and video, we have a lot of new ways to communicate. But the thing is that everything's different. Me talking into a camera is not the same as me writing a book. A book is a different medium, and to me, I think that books are the most important part of a language, because if a language doesn't have a writing system, then it doesn't, thought doesn't travel across time. It starts with, because a writing system usually develops because people tell stories, and they do it over generations, and then at some point, besides business reasons, that's one of the reasons, not the only reason. People. I'm no linguist, but anyway, people want to be able to save what they've their stories, and they want to have something permanent. I think this develops in what initiates the need for writing is business and legal and all that. But what perpetuates it is the need of critical thought. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling before this turns into an hour-long video, and just telling you that keep doing what you're doing. If you have a passion for human language, that means that you have a passion for the human species, and that you should continue doing what you're doing, just keep reaching, because you're very important for the future, and you can't let other people who have a very limited spectrum of thinking, they only think in the moment. You're thinking about future generations. You're thinking about other people in different cultures in different countries, possibly different planets. So just be really aware of how important you are to our species. Anyway, thank you.
Mataita.